I welcome you all for this session. Today, let us discuss about the functions of the caste system. As enunciated in the earlier chapters, the caste system is a unique feature of Hindu society. It is pluralistic in nature and consists of 4 varnas and several jatis. However, this diversity is no way has hindered the integration of the Hindu society, whereas it diversified the groups and amalgamated them to form a Hindu society. Hence, the primary function of caste system is of strengthening the Hindu society, which is of paramount importance that virtually symbolize the phrase unity in diversity. In essence, yet another concomitant function of the caste system is to infer or deduce and further establish that the birth determines the caste in Hindu society. In other words, the origin of one's caste is rightfully traced to the womb of the concerned mother. No one can either rise above their caste into which one is born or decline to the lower caste even if one desires. When a child is born, the rituals are performed in accordance with the prevalent customs of the caste laws, and the child is educated as decreed in the caste. In addition, it is too sacrosanct that the caste would determine one's profession. Moreover, based on caste rules, a person performs sacraments or samskaras or rites, that is, in which Hindus reaffirm their connection to the divine, as also maintain relationship with other members of the society. The caste determines one's social intercourse, restrictions on movements in the society, selection of friends, marriage fixations, and also lays down the mode of celebrations within the ambit of its customs. Caste also provides mental security to the individual. Caste system decides an individual's occupation, marriage, types of social life, customs to be practiced, and so on. Each caste has their own prescriptions, restrictions and prohibitions pertaining to food and drinks. It guides cooking practices like types of food, certain rituals while cooking, kinds of cooking, serving vessels to be used, and also advocates the types of cloths, dresses and ornaments to be worn by women on different occasions. Caste also regulates the daily lifestyle routine by advocating certain rites that are mandatory to be performed from dawn to dusk. It gives out a list of taboos like punishment for violation of rules, and it can outcast a person temporarily or permanently based on the nature of sin committed. It also re-index or reinstate a person into the folds once the stipulated period of punishment is completed. In fact, the caste system actually acts as a quasi-sovereign authority to control and regulate the members. As regards the customs of marriage, every caste has its own customs. Members are required to abide by the customs without any bias or prejudice. There are strict rules regarding marriage, widow remarriage, and prescriptions as to performance of various rites and sacraments. It is interesting to note that the caste decides the property rights to the members, that is, the transfer of property and its rights to children. Certain castes have embraced the patrilineal system, while some others the matrilineal system. The caste also prescribes rules for building the type of houses and allots its members separate street for living. It reminds the caste people of duties ascribed to them. Not to mention the least, the caste also plays a significant role during demise of members. There are strict stipulations regarding the funeral ceremony. It prescribes to the family members of the deceased whether the body should be cremated or buried. If cremation needs to be done, the location and kinds of rituals that are to be followed and the performance of the same are specified with respect to different castes. Similarly, even at birth, the caste suggests specific rituals to be observed like initiation, ear piercing, head shaving, the first rice feeding, and so on. The function of caste is to predetermine their pattern of behavior in this world to a considerable extent, leaving much less to individual choice than in a casteless society. The caste also decides the membership of the community. In some castes, outsiders are not allowed. The number in the caste is increased only by births in the caste. The caste system determines and fixes the gradation of caste in accordance with the hierarchy prevailing in that area. Another worthy feature is that the caste would change its name after altering the marriage and diet laws which are fundamental to the caste system. The general practice is to adopt the name of the higher caste and use it as an adjective. For example, in Assam, the Doman Hari has changed its name as Brita as Bania. They are now known as Banias, but this caste name should not be confused with the Banias, the high caste traders of Rajputana. The Panchla and artisan caste have changed their caste name as Vishwakarma Brahmanas. The Chamars have changed their caste name as Galit Rajputs. The Barbars have changed their caste name as Nai Brahmana. Many cow keeping castes of northern India such as Abhi, Gwala, Gopa, etc. have switched over to a common caste as Yadavas. The caste system passes on the culture, skill and knowledge from one generation to another. Thus, the trade secrets are preserved by not allowing marriages outside the caste. In general, the caste functions as a guild or a trade union. In recent times, the caste bodies could achieve what they desire by resorting to strikes. Political parties rely mostly on caste for their votes. They select candidates based on a particular caste whose members dominate the population in that area. The caste systems operates with many vigils in the religious sphere. It changes laws according to the change in time. For instance, a custom by name Sati has been dropped altogether, though it rarely occurs in one or two places. There is a noticeable change in the social and religious observance in accordance with the changing ethical standards and trends based on public opinion. The low caste people who wish to upgrade themselves usually abolish the practices that are considered as low in the estimation and assessment of the high caste Hindus. The most important and sacred rules of a caste are pertaining to marriage and food. Low caste groups abolished widows' remarriage as first step to elevate themselves to the status of an upper caste. Unless they modified the rules at par with the high caste, they cannot think of an elevation. J. H. Halton says, it will be understood then that one important function of caste, perhaps the most important of all its function and the one which above all others make caste in India as unique function, is or has been to integrate Indian society, to weld into one community the various computing, if not incompatible or religious others, and this is more important to have been national, political and tribal societies that most otherwise have either been absorbed and transformed or remained as unadjusted and possibly subversive elements. Generally speaking, conquered people and their conquerors blend into one society in which one or other elements may eventually predominate. For example, the Castilian who conquered Spain absorbed the Moors that remained there, but Negroes of America are still treated as segregated population. But unlike in other places, the caste system in India has brought integration to the society. It acted as an integrator. Gilbert, in his book People of India, says India has developed a system of caste which as a scheme of social adjustment compares rather favorable with the European system of warring territorial nationalities. Let us see the essence of the above quotes. Most important function of caste is that it integrates a society into one consolidated community. This is something very unique in India. Other factors including religion are only subversive when it comes to national, political, tribal identities. So, the conquerors and the conquered people generally merge into society where some factor is predominant, example the caste and religion. The Castilian, after capture of Spain, absorbed Moors of Spain. Negroes or the blacks of USA are still treated as segregated lot. Caste is a scheme of social adjustment and is comparable to European system of territorial nationalities between two enemy countries. The next important function of the caste system is its role as political stabilizer. Abel Dubais, in this book on People of India, has praised the caste system as the happiest effort of their legislation, which act as defense against despotism, as a preserver of arts, as a source for orderly government, as reserved from barbarism, and as preserver of culture from the allied conquerors. The caste system is a social system that is completely independent of political conditions and political governments. S.C. Hill, in his book Origin of the Caste System in India, says the only social system ever proposed upon a basis stronger than force. He further adds, the system is permanently stable because of the complete absence of any motive or the part of the ruled for seeking any alteration. The caste system ushers in the stability in the society too. The Indian society had seen famines, invasions, revolutions, and all kinds of social changes. The territorial invasions were followed by cultural invasions. The Hindu society could withstand and balances all these because of an organized society which was based on caste system. The caste system functions as a stabilizer of the society. Halton says, again, the caste system does provide for the various functions necessary of social life, from the government to domestic service of the most menial kind, and it makes this provision under the sanction of a religious dogma, the belief of karma, which renders the superficially inequitable distribution of functions acceptable as being part of the divine order of the universe and a transient episode in the prolonged existence of the individual, which by occurring in one existence may rise in the scale in the next, or which may suffer from a degradation in caste merely by reason of the transgressions in the previous life. The caste system is an organism consisting of many individual cells functioning independently. Blunt in his caste system says, the caste system is so mutable that no account of it remains accurate for long. Its evolution is still proceeding. New castes and subcastes come into existence. Old customers fall into abeyance. As said earlier, the Varnas constitute caste system. The mutability of the caste system resulted in changing the customs in accordance with the needs of the time. Now, the third Varna, Vaishya people, could easily be accepted to the second Varna, Kshatriya, if they are able to uplift themselves with a high level of education. Likewise, the fourth Varna, the Shudra people, could easily be recognized in the second or third order, provided they show an improvement in education and in cleanliness. Every system has both advantages and disadvantages. The main disadvantages are that the caste system has kept the caste people in that lot. For example, the traditional goldsmiths refuse to adopt modern methods in their profession. The carpenter community also refused to adapt the most recent inventions in their profession. Shering says, caste makes no compromises. The most ignorant Hindu can compete with the obedience of the most intelligent. Hutton says, it is a possibility that further disadvantages of the caste system may occur economically, that it probably discourages organizations from above by the entrepreneur no less than it forestalls ambition on the part of the workman. The disadvantages of the caste system are regarding the restrictions of profession. The occupation was determined by the status of the caste instead of contract. The system affects the economic life of the people. Despite occupational hazards made by the caste system, India could make industrial progress. The caste system had the approval of the religion. Manu says that the custom is the transcendent law that the Bhagavad Gita speaks of and attributes the duty of the persons to his caste. Markandeya Purana says that perfection can be attained only by adherence to caste laws. The principles behind the caste system were based on the theory of karma and reincarnation. The law of Manu contains the following passage: a Shudra who is clean, pure, and free from pride and seeks refuge with Brahmanas attain a higher birth in his next life. Shering says The ties of caste are stronger than those of religion. A man may be a bad Hindu as far as the practice of his religious duties, but caste rules must be minutely observed or he will fare to reap the consequences of neglect. With many Hindus, the highest form of religious observance is the complete fulfillment of the claims of caste, and most of them conceive of sin as a breach of caste system, discipline rather than of moral law. The Brahmins of the top of the ladder took advantage of the caste system. Though the prescribed duties of the Brahmins were confined to their priesthood and religious practices, they came out of their shell to occupy other professions in violation of the caste laws. They showed arrogance to the low caste people and kept away from them to avoid pollution. Though greater responsibilities were assigned to high caste people to maintain order in the society, they created disorder in the society by their rude behavior towards the low caste people. The women were the sufferers in the system of caste. The higher caste forbade them from choosing bridegrooms from other castes. They were not allowed to remarry in the case of the death of their husband. The child marriage was a common practice among the higher caste. All the freedom of women were purely dependent on males throughout their life. A girl was dependent on her father first and later her husband. After the death of her husband, the woman had to depend upon her son or some male in family. A kind of slavery has been attached to womanhood from childhood to death. The low caste people who wanted an upliftment in the society began to adapt the laws of the higher caste regarding marriage, that is the child marriage, and widow remarriage, which affected the women folk of the caste. This is one of the drawbacks of the system. Now, the rules of the caste are not that much severe as were in previous centuries. It is very difficult to destroy the caste system, which is based on religious beliefs. Moreover, the destruction will result in the abolition of the society itself, because the Hindu society is fundamentally based on caste system, but modifications in the caste system can be brought in. Hutton says, meanwhile, there seems to be no reason why a great improvement in the position of those castes should be made within the system as it exists today, and without any necessity for destroying a social order which performs the society. Professor Bart Bed, in his Anthropology in Reconstruction, says caste is one of the hard points of Hindu culture, and any attempt to modify it by a direct attack on it is likely to provoke resistance and discard, and consequently reformers will need to aim at some soft point, some other feature of the culture, that is through which the hard point can ultimately be circumvented and isolated. The function of the caste should better be modified so as to suit the present situation. The social reformers should awaken the high caste people to the needs of the time and gradually lessen the security of the system. Thank you.